fearlessly talking about the biggest stories that matter to you the most. Breaking news, John Calipari is finalizing a 5-year deal to become the Arkansas Razorbacks' next head coach, covering college sports like no one else. The biggest guests in sports. We now welcome in Hall of Famer Jim Calhoun.
Such a pride I had, I came to connect.
The legend, Tim Tebow, joins us.
We'll run it back. I like it.
The legend, Herschel Walker. Welcome in, everybody. Little Sunday morning edition, Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Torres. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's having a great day. Hope everybody enjoyed pretty much wall-to-wall college football with a little bit of college hoops mixed in here over the last couple days. We got a lot of ground to cover in a short amount of time. We are going to open. How about the Alabama Crimson Tide going to Norman, getting the win, what it means. Kalen DeBoer, he ain't going to Michigan anymore, people. We will discuss that. From there, how about the U? I got to hold up the mic, so I'll do the half U, maybe the reverse half U. Miami getting the victory. I got to give Mario Cristobal credit, man. This guy gets nothing but crap on social media. He picks up the big victory. And then from there, we will talk about what I think is the biggest story out of round one of the college football playoff. What do we do with the G5's? Another existential crisis for college football. Oh, my goodness. What do we do with all these G5's? We'll wrap, by the way, with a little bit of college hoops. Credit to the University of Kentucky. They needed a big win. They get one against St. John's. Duke loses. Arkansas essentially no shows against Houston. And so we'll talk about a busy weekend in college hoops as well. Before we get started, a couple quick reminders. One, make sure that you are subscribed to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New clips, new videos going up every single day. We are closing in on 68,000 subscribers, but we cannot get there without your support. I still believe with 10 days left in 2025 that we can get to 70,000 subscribers. We got to throw a party, do a giveaway, something like that when we get there, but we cannot do it without your support. So make sure you're subscribed. Also, you can subscribe on Apple, Spotify as well. Speaking of podcasts, you want to do your boy Torres a solid. We have pinned my Fox Sports Radio podcast from Saturday in the chat. Do me a favor, just download it. I don't really care if you listen, but I'm trying to impress the bosses over at Fox Sports Radio as well. For those of you who do not know, I do host Fox Sports Radio's national recap show every Saturday night from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. Eastern time. All right. Also, before we get started, you know what we got to do? We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank Circa Casino and Circa Sportsbook. Okay, so I've told you all about Circa, but listen, when you go to Vegas, it's that time of year. You want to lay low, watch some games, maybe watch some meaningless bowl games, a little bit of college hoops in the middle of the day. You need a sports book. When you are in Vegas, it is the best place. The Circa Sportsbook, the best place in Vegas to watch games. Here's the thing, though. Don't forget this. The best place to watch games on the East Coast is the new Circa Sportsbook at Mint, Kentucky Downs in Franklin, Kentucky. Okay, so I've told you all about the Mint. I was actually there, last week, 10 days ago, whatever it was. Unbelievable facility. It truly is about, I don't know, I think I did the maps, 37, 38 minutes from downtown Nashville. It's actually the closest sports book to downtown Nashville. This place is a replica of Circa Sportsbook. Awesome place to watch games. The day I was there, it was packed, and I cannot encourage you all to check it out as well. Franklin, Kentucky, 20 or so minutes from Bowling Green, about 37 or so minutes according to my maps from Nashville. Thank you for Circa support of the Aaron Torres Pod. And as I tell you, I'll be down there sometime in March doing live shows from that new Circa Sportsbook. With that said, it's a busy Sunday in the world of college sports. There is no more time to waste, so people, let's go ahead and do it. Let's get to the topic of the day. Topic of the day, listen, so I'll be transparent. I think the actual probably biggest story out of the opening weekend of college football playoff conversations is what do we do with the G5's? We'll get to that one in a minute. But where I do want to start is actually the first playoff game that we got on Friday night, because I do think it is easy now in the moment to sit there and say, well, Alabama won. Of course they won. Ty Simpson, Kalen DeBoer, whatever. But I bring it up because it's easy with revisionist history to say what should have happened, what could have happened, what did happen, whatever. But here is the reality. What you also have to factor in is the opposite. What would the conversation be if Alabama lost? And oh, by the way, I don't think we can have revisionist history on what the conversation is going in. Now, I did pick Alabama to win this game on Friday. But at the same time, let's not pretend like there hasn't been all sorts of questions about Alabama really since that third Saturday in October when they beat Tennessee for that fourth straight ranked win. Now, listen, I was part of the conversation, okay? How good is this team? Embarrassing loss in the SEC championship game, all of that. But I bring it up because you know how bad it got for Alabama. Again, it's easy to say this after the Alabama win over Oklahoma on Friday night. It got so bad that even Nick Saban on College Game Day in the lead up to this game was kind of calling out the Alabama Crimson Tide. It was crazy. I don't watch a ton of pregame stuff, but it was a Friday night. I was kind of eating dinner, getting ready for the game. Matt, you can pop up the tweet. I believe Mike Rodak is the name of the beat writer because he saw this in real time. And I was wondering if anybody saw it besides me. Nick Saban very much criticizing Alabama going into that Oklahoma game. Nick Saban on College Game Day saying, quote, "One thing that I prided ourselves in," this of course being his Alabama teams, "when we played Georgia in the SEC championship game, it was two physical teams. It was disappointing to me to see how much more physical Georgia's team was in the SEC championship game than Alabama's was." That was Nick Saban on College Game Day. And I know what everybody will say. It's a little bit of reverse rat poison from Nick Saban. That is not the case. That is not true at all. Instead, that was the reality. There was a perception that Alabama has gotten soft, that Alabama has gotten bullied. And there were a lot of people that thought this was a bad matchup for them, not only because Oklahoma had beaten them, but because more specifically, Oklahoma is the kind of physical team that they had struggled with the back half of the year. Well, I bring it up because, what was the old saying for Alabama a few years ago? Let all naysayers know. Alabama let the naysayers know. Final score 34-24. They opened the playoff with a college football playoff win. But I think it wasn't just that they won, but more specifically how it happened. Now, look, if you watch the game, a couple things. One, first of all, I'm not going to sit here and lie and pretend that Alabama was the most physical team in the history of college football. And we also, but they did what they needed to do, which we'll get to in a minute. But I think more importantly than that, here was the important part, is that, again, they did fall down 17-0, and it would have been easy for them to quit. Listen, when they fell down 17-0, I was one of many. It's over. This team, peaked in October, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, they start coming back. And all of a sudden, they start fighting back. And all of a sudden, you have the touchdown pass, the field goal. And, of course, obviously, the big play, which is ironic because really Oklahoma broke open the game in Tuscaloosa a few weeks ago with a pick six. Well, fast forward a couple weeks later, you know how that game got broken open on Friday night? A Zabian Brown pick six return for a touchdown. It tied the game at 17. And all of a sudden, Alabama cruised from there. And so to me, this is where it goes back to what Nick Saban said before the game is, can you be the more physical team? Now, again, I think if you're just looking at the box score, it's hard to say that Alabama was the most physical team in the history of football. But again, if you watch that game, Alabama kind of sort of dominated the back half of that game. And really, I would say about the final 2.5 quarters. I think, Oklahoma was in control early. And you could argue that, whatever, in, early second quarter before Alabama scored all those points, that Alabama, that Oklahoma was in control. But once Alabama got it up at 17, there was what the team was and the better team was overall. Specifically, one, again, I know statistically it's hard to sit there and say, well, Alabama was this incredibly physical team because of the fact that they only had 28 yards rushing. But guess what? The opposite is true as well. They held Oklahoma to 55 yards rushing. And if you watch that game, John Mateer, I don't know how else to say it. It was kind of a mess the final 3 quarters of that game. Part of it was Alabama's defense was phenomenal. I think that was part of it. I don't understand some of the mechanical things with John Mateer. Listen, I'm not a QB guru. Did anyone else notice, by the way, John Mateer jumps when he throws. It was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. But what was clear was, by the way, people were like, oh, quarterbacks do that all the time. No. Aaron Rodgers throws off a back foot. Brett Favre throws off a back foot. Go back and watch the Alabama-Oklahoma highlights. John Mateer was jumping to throw the football. But what that says to me is that Alabama's team was in their head, or Alabama's team was in his head, and that basically they were keeping him off balance all game. So you go through the game. You are the more physical team. You are the tougher team. You set the tone. I'll also say this, side tangent, because I want to give credit to Alabama. Not Brent Venables' finest moment. I like Venables, but they will not be making any instructional videos on his clock management stuff, okay? End of the first half, chooses not to run a final play, throw a deep ball towards the end zone. That final, 4 or so minutes, where basically Oklahoma needed 2 scores. Herbstreit, listen, I can criticize Herbstreit for certain things, but he said right away, he said, if you get in field goal range, you have to just kick the field goal and try to take the points. And it was the weird thing where Mateer took the sack. He should have thrown it out of bounds. Then Oklahoma doesn't take a timeout. They let 30 seconds run off the clock. They sub late, which allows Alabama to sub late. It was just a total train wreck. Now, it didn't matter because they missed the field goal, and then they missed a second field goal later. But the story of the game wasn't Venables, whatever. It wasn't his clock management. It was the fact that Alabama, in a game where everybody was questioning their toughness, went ahead and took care of business. You know what this game actually reminded me of? Remember the old school Dabo Sweeney, BYOG, bring your own guts? That's basically what Alabama did. And like I said, on the road, in a hostile environment, when nobody expected them to win, they got the victory. And so with the victory, a couple things. First of all, let me say this. As a matter of fact, before we even get to my thoughts on things, how about Ty Simpson? Because, again, this isn't just a made-up Torres narrative on a Sunday. There was very much noise that this team is too soft, that this team isn't good enough, that this team peaked in October, that there's no way they're going to beat Oklahoma. Well, Ty Simpson on the podium after the game, he certainly had a lot to say about that narrative.
Said he feels like what happened in the SEC championship game helped y'all come back tonight, and he kind of saw a different resolve in the team tonight. Do you feel the same way that what happened in the last time out kind of helped tonight?
You start with that. Yeah, I guess we can thank you guys for that. I mean, y'all kind of wrote us off in a sort of way, so appreciate that.
That was Ty Simpson after the game. By the way, Matt, can you hear me okay? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, cool. Mike's looking a little bit weird over here, but we have so many mic issues on this show. We're just going to be getting new mics, but that's another conversation for another day. Okay, so as far as the Ty Simpson quote, that narrative was real. We can pretend that people weren't questioning Alabama coming into this game, but they absolutely were. They get the win. And I think the important thing with Alabama, too, now is I do think this brings a lot of stability to the program. Because the one thing I'll say, and by the way, Alabama fans would be like, what are you talking about? We're the most stable program in college football. But what I always look at is what would the consequences be if you did not win this game? And if you did not win this game, it now becomes 9 months of, again, I hate to say it, Bama, maybe you'll disagree, Bama fans, but it becomes 9 months of, are we sure DeBoer's the guy, right? 3 of your last 4 games against power conference teams. You lose at home to Oklahoma. You get destroyed by Georgia in the SEC championship game. And in the conversation that you lose this game, the conversation then becomes, again, you lost 3 of 4. Remember, last year they lost to Michigan in the bowl game, Oklahoma late. And I think there's this big conversation in the offseason about Kalen DeBoer. By the way, those Michigan rumors probably don't go away for another week or 2 as we try to figure out what's going on there. And then there's conversations about all sorts of stuff. Ty Simpson peaking. Is he really an NFL prospect? Should he come back? Do you force him out to bring in Keelan Russell? There's a million different conversations. But they get the win. They get the victory. And I'll say this. I saw an early look-ahead line from Circa in the Rose Bowl against Indiana, where basically like Indiana's like a 7.5 point favorite. Maybe I'm crazy. I actually think Alabama matches up well with Indiana. And what I would say is this, if you get that version of Alabama, I'm sorry, that team can play with anybody in college football. Because the last thought, because I want to get to some of the other games, is that like it's easy to forget this. Yes, they got destroyed by Georgia 2 weeks ago. They were also down a million guys. Like I think Marty Smith put out a tweet. I didn't pull it for the show. I think there was 10 like full-time impact players that did not play in the SEC championship game that were available for Oklahoma. Josh Cuevas, the star tight end, was a game-time decision. Daniel Hill, the running back who had that phenomenal run middle of the third quarter. Jam Miller, the other running back who's obviously been their best back. These are all guys that didn't play against Georgia. So listen, I never really thought there was a conversation that Alabama wasn't going to get into the playoff, but there was a question of what damage could they do. Well, I'll tell you what, man, I love what I saw from them, and maybe I'm crazy. I think they match up very well with Indiana in the Rose Bowl. That's a problem for the next 10 days or so. Alabama fans, enjoy this one. You have silenced the critics, starting with Nick Saban. Listen, I got to own that in middle of the first quarter, I kind of gave up on Alabama. But listen, my criticism pales in comparison to Nick Saban, who said they were too soft. They proved the doubters wrong with the victory in Norman, Oklahoma. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break, come back. When we do, want to get to the rest of the opening weekend of the college football playoff. Miami, how about the U, baby? They get the victory over Texas A&M in College Station. We're going to have the G5 conversation as well. Is it time to eliminate them? And then we'll get to a little bit of college hoops. We got a lot to get to here on a Sunday. Drop your comments in the chat. We'll prioritize super chats. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute. But before we do, I have so many people that reach out and say, Torres, you give me hours and hours and hours of free content every day, every month, every year. What can I do to help support the show? Well, you want to support the show and look good in the process. Make sure to check out and support the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Some of you wondering, what can I get in that merch store, Torres? Well, Kentucky fans, we got our Mark Pope, Hope and Pope t-shirts. That is right. Mark Pope, monster first year. Year 2 is going to be even better. Get your Hope and Pope t-shirt at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. Arkansas fans, the Big Pig Invasion is coming. It is here. John Calipari has things rocking. Get your Big Pig Invasion tees. Again, aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. St. John's fans, we have our Big Rick Energy t-shirts. And if you're just a college basketball fan in general, guess what? Your March is for Day Drinking shirt. That is the shirt that you need year-round, but especially for the next NCAA tournament. You can order yours now. By the way, football fans, we got you covered too. Nebraska fans, new era, new rules, the t-shirt that you need before the start of this coming season. And oh, by the way, if you're a Colorado fan, if you're just a Coach Prime fan, we have our Dion shirts and hats, more of them than we know what to do with. So to check out the full line of Aaron Torres Media merch and also support the show, good news is we're going to have even more for the fall. Check out the Aaron Torres Media merch store at aarontorresonline.com/merchandise. And for more information, you can always reach out at Aaron Torres Podcast Questions at gmail.com. All right, everybody. I am back. Good to be back. This chat cracked me up. You're dead wrong. I still want DeBoer gone. This from an Alabama fan. Listen, I'd actually love to hear in the chat two things. What exactly is it that makes you want Kalen DeBoer gone? And then more specifically, who is the realistic candidate that you can get that will fix whatever issues that you have with Kalen DeBoer? I'm not here to criticize. I'm just genuinely curious. That is Fermi Paradox 1 with that, the Alabama script day with the houndstooth in the background. Not even making fun. I'm just genuinely curious about your thoughts on what would make Alabama better and what needs to be fixed. Really quickly, you know what doesn't need to be fixed? Our partnership with SeatGeek. Okay, so listen, it's that time of year. You want to go to games. Maybe you're a Miami fan and you're like, guess what? I'm going to the Ohio State game on New Year's Eve. Maybe you're a Bama fan and you like Kalen DeBoer and you're going to the Rose Bowl. Well, guess what? As we get set for New Year's Day, you're going to need tickets for something. And when you do, you're going to have to call our friends at SeatGeek. Okay, so SeatGeek is America's #1 ticketing app. Over 28 million downloads. Unbelievable. And here's the great thing about SeatGeek. Two things. One, every ticket on that app is rated 1 through 10. You don't have to question, is this the right ticket, the wrong ticket, a good ticket, a bad ticket? No. All you got to do is go on SeatGeek. Every ticket is rated 1 through 10 with a green dot or a red dot. But you know what I really love about SeatGeek? Yeah, you can already guess. It is that they take care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. So if you go to SeatGeek.com and if you use promo code Torres, how about this? Get you $20 off your first purchase on any ticket, anytime, anywhere, concert shows. I think that's the important part, right? Maybe you can't go to the college football playoff, but you can go, say you're an Alabama fan. You can go to an Alabama basketball game. You can go to an Alabama women's basketball game. You could go to a Birmingham Stallions game now coached by A.J. McCarron. And if you use SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, you'll get $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres gets you $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek.com, promo code Torres, $20 off your first purchase. Any game, any show, any concert, SeatGeek.com. With that said, let's get to the second playoff game. Luke in the chat led off the chat by basically saying A&M is a total fraud. So let's get into it, because the second game of the college football playoff, in many ways, to me, I think was probably the most individually consequential. Maybe, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, man, fun afternoon in College Station. By the way, side tangent as we get into this game, college football has to stop being worried about competing with the NFL on these Saturdays in December. This should have been a night game at Kyle Field, but I'm not sure that it would have mattered, because Miami, to its credit, goes to Kyle Field. Listen, I don't know if we'd call this game an instant classic. I don't know if we'd call it the perfectly played game. But what I will say is I did think by the end, Miami had established itself as the better team, the better program, not better programs, whatever, but the deserving winner as they go to College Station and they get that 10-3 victory. Tell you what, it wasn't always pretty, but Miami with the win has now advanced to face Ohio State on New Year's Eve. Let's get into this one. Listen, this was, first of all, I'll say this. If you listen to Friday's show, or I guess it was Thursday's show, we previewed this game. And I had just done Texags minutes before. I do Texags 9:35 Central Time, and we get on air at 10 Central, so it was fresh on my mind. But I told my buddy David Nuno, who hosts Texags, love David, love Texags, whatever. I said, it's a tough matchup for A&M, because the thing about A&M, Marcel Reed is not a great quarterback. That's okay. That's not a criticism. It's just a reality, right? But at the same time, what A&M basically gets by on is we are the more physical team. We are going to wear you down. We are going to bully you. We are going to intimidate you. And I said, Miami just isn't the team that is going to be intimidated. And so I thought it was interesting, because when you looked at these two teams, they largely kind of mirrored each other. We talked about all the stats on Thursday's show. Both of them top 20 nationally in fewest sacks allowed, top 20 nationally in total sacks. But what I also thought was interesting was a couple things. Was one, and this certainly came into fruition, Miami, and they brought this up on the broadcast, one of the teams that is best in the country in turnover margin. A&M, one of the teams that is worst in turnover margin. And that all kind of came into fruition during this game, right? So as far as the game itself is concerned, let's go ahead and talk about it. Like I said, and I would love for people's opinions or perspectives on like what this game was. I thought it was a very good game, and I'll give credit to both teams. You can have a great game without a lot of points. And what I saw was NFL bodies absolutely everywhere. Okay, I'll tell a quick side story. Was talking to somebody on Saturday morning that coaches at an ACC school that faced Miami. He said, dude, I've been doing this a long time. He said Miami looks as much of basically an NFL team in college as I have seen in 20, 25, 30, whatever years doing it. And this is a guy that's coached in the SEC, Big Ten, like he's seen a lot of great teams. He said Miami looks like an NFL team walking off the bus. And so this was a physical game. It was a back and forth game. It was a weird game. It was crazy, right? And I don't know if we have any A&M fans or people that were in the stands during the game. Everybody's wearing T-shirts, so the weather couldn't have been bad, but the wind was obviously crazy because nobody could make a field goal. And then, like I said, part of it too was also that A&M has been a turnover-prone team all year. A&M finished the game with 3 turnovers, and really that's what it came down to. Final 4 or 5 minutes, we know what happened, right? Miami, to its credit, against maybe the most physical team in the SEC, Texas A&M, bullied the ball down the field. Mark Fletcher was running the ball down their throats. And then the Malachi Toney touchdown late gave them the lead. Now, quick side tangent. A lot of people, I saw the whole, like, should have fallen down at the one. I'm generally a fall down at the one and run down the clock kind of guy. But on a Saturday where nobody could make a field goal, where the winds were going a million miles an hour, and where, frankly, nobody could even pick up a yard on the ground consistently, I actually thought it was the right thing to run it in. I don't think it was under any consideration. And then, oh, by the way, A&M hadn't found the end zone all game long, and so you're asking them to drive the length of the field. Well, they do drive the length of the field, but Marcel Reed, and I hate to say it, but it's been a conversation all year long, inconsistent, turnover-prone, throws the interception late, that seals the victory. Miami gets the win, and they will now be in Dallas on New Year's Eve playing the Ohio State Buckeyes. As far as this game is concerned, listen, like I said, it wasn't the perfect game, but let's go ahead and give Miami credit. I don't know how many people were actually upset that Miami was in the college football playoff. I think most people kind of looked at it and said they beat Notre Dame head-to-head. Notre Dame doesn't have this incredible resume, whatever. But if there was any doubt that they belonged and there was any doubt that they could play with anybody, well, it was proven on Saturday when you go into a stadium with 100,000 people in maroon and you get the victory. Thought it was interesting after the game. You could see how much this meant to Miami, its alums, its fans. I'll tell you a quick side story, and I know I'm on all sorts of side tangents in this segment. I apologize. But years ago, before I was a podcaster and YouTuber, I worked at foxsports.com, did a big story on the 2001 Miami Hurricanes. I spent like 6 months working on it. I used to be a writer back in the day, believe it or not. And I interviewed all those guys, Ed Reed, Andre Johnson, Frank Gore, can't remember all of them, Delvin Brown, who was Ed Reed's roommate, Bryant McKinney, on and on. I don't know that there's any place that the alums take as much pride in the program and want to see the program succeed. And so I thought it was cool. After the game, Pat McAfee was doing one of the alt casts or whatever, got a chance to catch up with Edgerrin James and Andre Johnson. We cannot play the video because it was during a game broadcast, but here is the sound. McAfee talking to both Edgerrin James and Andre Johnson.
Dre, hey. All right, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts quickly, Edge?
What do you mean? The University of Miami, we here. That's what we came here for.
Would Notre Dame have won that game?
Do what now?
Would Notre Dame have won that game?
I don't know about nobody else. I know University of Miami won that game.
Of that, Dre, what were your thoughts? Cagey affair, tight scoring. What did you see from the team down the stretch?
Man, just guts and will. That's all it's about. It's the college playoffs.
Is the U back? Is the U back?
Hell yeah, we back.
Good
You will, Ohio State.
Congratulations.
Ohio State. Texas next week.
Ohio State.
Texas next week.
The Miami Hurricanes have a college football playoff win. They head down to the Cotton Bowl to take on the Ohio State Buckeyes.
By the way, shout out to Darius Butler, my former UConn buddy and pickup basketball friend. He was the one shouting out Miami versus Ohio State next week. For people who don't remember, the 2002 national championship game, very controversial ending, Miami and Ohio State in Dallas here in a few weeks. So we're going to have plenty of time to preview this. But listen, is the U back? Listen, I'll say this. I will let Miami fans determine if they believe that the U is back. Now, the U of my childhood is synonymous with national championships. 5 in about 20 or so years. What was it? From about 86 to 01. But what I will say is this. I think we got to give Mario Cristobal some credit, man. Like, Mario Cristobal is a constant whipping boy on social media. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. He does that. He loses weird games. And I'm not going to say it's perfect, but first of all, you go through this season. The SMU game was fluky as hell. If you watch that game, there was a BS late hit call after a whistle was blown. The player didn't hear it, whatever. They easily could have won that game, been 11-1 in the ACC championship game last week. But at the same time, this dude gets nothing but crap. But here's the thing. I just don't think people realize how bad the program had been when he took over, right? Because he takes over Miami, and the assumption is, well, it's Miami. Of course they're going to be good. They're going to be fine. It's Miami. Do you understand how bad Miami was before Mario Cristobal got there? Do you understand that Miami, this is a crazy stat, okay? From 2004 until last season, so that's a 20-year stretch, if my math is correct, 04 to 2024, Miami had one 10-win season. One 10-win season at Miami between 2004 and 2024. That is insane. By the way, they hadn't had back-to-back winning seasons since 03-04, or actually it was 02-03, excuse me. So they haven't had back-to-back winning seasons in 20-plus years. Well, guess what? They have now won 21 games over the last 2 years. Obviously, they have established themselves, in my opinion, as the best program in the ACC. I'm sorry, Clemson ain't it. They've beaten Florida State, I think, 3 out of 4 years now, whatever. NFL draft picks, NFL bodies. This is the crazy thing that Cristobal brought up. His first 2 years at Miami, they had a combined 4 NFL draft picks. So essentially, the previous staff left him 0 NFL players. They're going to have a bunch of first-rounders this year. Ruben Bain, you go on and on down the list, they got a bunch of dudes. And so I just don't think that guy gets enough credit. And especially this, too, is like there's this assumption that did I say back-to-back 10-win seasons? I don't know. But they obviously, this is the first time they've had back-to-back 10-win seasons since 02 and 03. But here's the other thing. Like I said, I think there's this assumption it's Miami. They're supposed to be good, whatever. But when you factor in that most of the players in high school right now, not even most, all of them, like I said, back-to-back 10-win seasons. The last time Miami was a true national championship contender was like the early 2000s. High school seniors this year were born in 2008. No one that is playing high school football or even college football remembers Miami being great. So Mario Cristobal had a lot to work. He had a lot of catching up to do, and he has done it in a short amount of time. And the last thing I'll say is this. Maybe it's controversial. I think Miami can play with anybody in this college football playoff. Listen, there is no team, in my opinion, that is super dynamic on both sides of the football. Like, Ohio State's a great team, but Ohio State in 12 games this year was able to build a lead and then just sit on the football and not have to make plays. Go back to the Texas game. They basically got the lead, let Arch Manning shoot himself in the foot. The Michigan game, they got up early and it was never competitive after. You get to the Big Ten championship game, they needed to make plays late. They couldn't. And also don't forget Brian Hartline, their OC, who people don't even like to begin with at Ohio State. He's double dipping right now with the South Florida job. So I just bring it up because like this notion that Miami has no chance, I think they match up actually very well with Ohio State. And it wouldn't shock me if we had a New Year's Eve stunner with the Miami Hurricanes. I have not seen an early line yet from Circus Sportsbook, but I would assume Ohio State's about a touchdown favorite. I think Miami can play with anybody. But to answer Andre Johnson's comments, is the U back? I might be in the minority, but I believe that they are. Really quickly, let's go ahead and switch gears. And let's go ahead and get to, I hate to say it, but I do think this was probably the biggest conversation about the opening round of the college football playoff. We have these 2 incredible games to open things up. And when I say incredible, close, back and forth, whatever, Alabama beats Oklahoma at Oklahoma. Miami beats Texas A&M at Texas A&M. Then we roll into Tulane, Ole Miss. Final score 41-10. Then we roll into Oregon versus James Madison. Final score there was, I believe it was 52-34, if I'm not mistaken on that. And I bring it up because it became the discourse that broke the internet on Saturday night. Is it time to eliminate the group of 5 from the college football playoff? 51-34 was the final score there for Oregon, by the way. Let me say this. It's very rare that you get a fired up, passionate, angry Torres. But forgive me, because for the next about 10 or so minutes, I'm going to be passionate, fired up, and angry. I believe the G5 conversation is one of the dumbest conversations that we have ever had. Yes, I believe they deserve a singular spot at the table. No, I do not believe we should eliminate 60 to 70% of the entire college football landscape because James Madison and Tulane did not play well. And what I just want to do is spend the next 5 minutes explaining why all of the arguments against eliminating G5s is dumb. First of all, let me start with the most baseline part of this debate, which even smart people don't seem to understand. Yes, there were 2 G5s in this college football playoff. That will never happen again. It may never happen, period, because G5s, we might eliminate auto bids. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But at the same time, it was a weird thing with the ACC tiebreak where clearly the best team in the ACC was not in the ACC championship game, and that was Miami. So if the ACC knew how to do tiebreaks, then all of a sudden Miami wins the ACC. They're playing at Texas A&M. We get Notre Dame at Ole Miss. Notre Dame might even pull off the upset in that one, and we don't have to worry about 2 G5s basically ruining the back half of the college football playoff, okay? But beyond that, this is where so first of all, if you're talking, why are there 2 G5s in the playoff? You're an idiot whose conversation, you can't be taken seriously, okay? It's going to be one going forward, assuming that it's any at all. But at the same time, here is why I'm frustrated. Because the reason we decided to expand the college football playoff, it's easy now with revisionist history to forget why we expanded the college football playoff. But in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, what did the college football playoff become? It usually became 2 SEC teams, Big Ten champ, and the Big 12 champ, which was almost always Oklahoma. And so you could go into a season essentially knowing who 2 or 3 of the college football playoff teams were, and there was never any doubt or debate. And so part of it was, remember when we had the Pac-12, it was, hey, we need a West Coast presence in this playoff. And it was also to get the G5s a seat at the table. And so, no, I don't believe it is this egregious overstep to allow 1 G5 team in the playoff. And let me take it a step further. I think most of the arguments for keeping the G5s out are actually very dumb. So let's just get into it. I wrote a few of them down. I'm going to be checking my notes a little bit more than usual in this segment because I have so many notes on this. Let's get to each individual argument individually, okay? So the first argument is, well, the G5s don't even play the same sport as the SEC and the Big Ten and whatever. Okay. Why? Because they had 2 bad games against two really good teams. First of all, let's just give Ole Miss and Oregon credit. But this notion, of course, they play the same sport. Same number of scholarships, whatever. Now, if you want to argue the G5s aren't quite as good because of the transfer portal, whatever, that's fine. But here's the counter. There are bad teams in the Big Ten. If you're telling me that, Tulane is not playing the same sport as Ole Miss, really? Because Tulane beat the ACC champ Duke in the regular season. Tulane actually went 2-1 in the regular season against power conference teams. So apparently they are playing the same sport, even if it didn't work out on Saturday. The counter to that is if you're going to say, well, James Madison, but they lost by, how much did they lose by? They lost by 17 points at Oregon. They did not deserve to be there. Okay. You know who lost by 31 points to Oregon? Minnesota in the Big Ten. You know who lost by 46 points to Oregon in the Big Ten? Rutgers. So are you telling me that Rutgers shouldn't even be in the FBS because they're not even playing the same sport? No, of course not. So don't use individual stats and individual numbers and individual games to tell me, they're not even playing the same sport. Which brings me to my second favorite argument, which is, well, you can't tell me that Texas and Notre Dame wouldn't have been more competitive. Yeah, actually, I can. I can't promise that Texas and Notre Dame and who else? Vanderbilt. Yes. Do I think they would have? I don't know that, though. You know how I know that? I can't tell you that Notre Dame would have been more competitive than Tulane. Why? Because the only 2 good teams that Notre Dame lost to the only 2 good teams that Notre Dame played, they lost to. Not sure if you saw, they lost to Miami. They lost to Texas A&M. But what about Texas? Texas lost in the swamp to a terrible 4-8 Florida team. A same Florida team, by the way, that lost to USF, hint, hint, group of 5 team 2 weeks earlier. So 2 weeks before Texas lost in the swamp, USF and Alex Golish went in there and beat them. So you can't tell me that Texas definitively would have won. By the way, Texas almost lost at Kentucky. Texas almost lost at Mississippi State. Don't tell me Texas would have been more competitive just because of the logo on the helmet. Oh, by the way, Vanderbilt. Oh, my goodness, Vanderbilt. Why did they get left out? I love Diego Pavia. Okay, well, Vanderbilt played one playoff team and got absolutely obliterated. It was the Alabama team that everybody told me stunk coming into the playoff, and Vanderbilt wasn't even competitive there. So don't tell me that there's a guarantee that they would have been better. By the way, this was my new favorite one that I hadn't seen before. It's not fair to the players because they'll only be remembered for getting obliterated. As a matter of fact, Matt, I did not send you this tweet. I'm going to pull up a Joel Klatt tweet. I generally like Joel. The takes haven't been the strongest the last couple weeks. I don't know if he has too much time on his hands or what, but Joel Klatt, this is what he said. I genuinely feel bad for these JMU players. They are a good football team who should be competing for a national championship on the appropriate level. Now most will only remember them for tonight. It's not their fault the CFP can't figure out a proper postseason structure. No one's going to remember them except as losers for losing to Oregon. Well, guess what? One, first of all, people aren't going to remember them at all. But two, go back to last year. What do we remember Tennessee for? We remember Tennessee for getting their brains beat in the horseshoe against Ohio State. I think Tennessee football will survive. And I think James Madison will survive too. And this stupid notion that the G5 should have their own playoff. No, they shouldn't. It's called the FCS. You do not care. And by the way, I kind of checked the postseason or the postgame sound. I don't know if this question was asked. I guarantee you, if you asked every guy in that James Madison locker room, would you rather play for some crappy title that nobody cares about, or would you rather play against Oregon and maybe you're going to lose, but at least you know where you stood and at least you got a shot? And that was the whole point, by the way. The G5's never even got a shot. And so now we're giving it to them and we're going to rip it away from them. And so to me, these are all of the conversations that are stupid. And you know what the worst part is? This is the worst part. Assuming the G5s keep one auto bid, and again, I'm not very optimistic that that will happen. Guess what? The second that one of them wins a game, the discourse is they're just gonna move the goalposts, right? The conversation will be, well, yeah, sure, they won a game, but they can't win a championship. This isn't March Madness. They can't win a bunch of. First of all, no Cinderella has won March Madness ever. The last non-power conference team to win a national championship in college basketball was UNLV with 5 future NBA players. So it's not like Cinderellas win national championships in college basketball. But to me, that is the most frustrating part, is that in every sport, why is college football the only sport? Every sport, guess what? We have auto bids based on geography or divisions or whatever. There have been years where the AFC South, shout out the Indianapolis Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans, where their champion has stunk, where their champion has no doubt not been one of the best 14 teams in the NFL. But they get an auto bid anyway, and when they get to the playoffs, they get a home field advantage. And nobody is screaming for the AFC South to lose their automatic bid, and I don't think the G5s should lose a singular automatic bid to this postseason as well. But again, that is the frustrating thing. Even when they win a game, and at some point they will if they keep getting shots, at some point, then it'll just, well, they can't win the championship. And so it's stupid. And the one thing I will say, and this isn't anybody's fault, but I will also add that I do believe that part of the biggest issue is that people don't even understand the basics of what the college football playoff 12-team bracket is, right? Because I heard this from smart people on Saturday. How can you argue that James Madison and Tulane, they're the best, they're 2 of the 12 best teams in college? Who said you're supposed to pick the 12 best teams? By definition, when you have auto bids, you are not going to get the best teams. Again, it is the same as NFL. Major League Baseball. Nobody says when the NFL playoff bracket comes out, oh, we didn't get the 14th best team. That was never the goal. And so to me, we have to stop this, and we have to stop living in the moment. Matt, you can pop up my tweet from last night if you get a second, because guess what? You know what's easy to forget? There were blowouts last year, too, in the opening round. A Big Ten team beat an SEC team by 25 points. It was called Ohio State curb stomping Tennessee. A Big Ten team beat an ACC team by 28 points. It was called Penn State curb stomping SMU. An SEC team beat an ACC team by 14 points. It was called Texas. I wouldn't call it a curb stomp, but they beat up Clemson pretty good. And so this isn't a G5 issue. This is a, guess what? Sometimes you get duds in a postseason issue. And it happens in every sport, and it doesn't mean we should blow up the postseason. Lastly, and I did tweet this right before we came on air, my biggest concern with college football, if I had to name one concern, it's not the, NIL and this school's paying this much. My biggest concern is that college football is the only sport that I know of that there is an existential crisis every year that needs to be fixed. And the problem is college football just keeps fixing and fixing and fixing and fixing. Give it another 5 to 10 years of fixing. It's not even going to be the same sport that we fell in love with. Again, they needed to fix the playoff by going to 12. We'll see what happens. But guess what? The 12-team playoff is going to go like the pterodactyl and disappear in like a year, and it's going to be a 16-team playoff. Then somebody's going to feel slighted, and it's not going to be enough. Then we're going to do this. Then we're going to eliminate that. Then we're going to add that. And all of a sudden, we're going to have something that doesn't even closely resemble what we fell in love with. It's not that big of a deal. One G5 team getting in, at some point, one of them is going to win. And oh, by the way, good teams get blown out all the time. We watch it every Saturday. So I'm sorry I got mad. I'm sorry, whatever. It is a dumb argument. It is a dumb conversation. And I'm obviously fired up. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take one more break. I want to get to your questions. The chat is humming, and we'll get to some of your comments. I like this. Aaron with some very serious theatrics. I'm fired up. Listen, I was like legitimately, I'll tell you a true story, and then we'll come back, talk a little hoops. I was like legitimately in a bad mood all day Saturday because I was just like, why can't we just, we have bad games in the postseason in every sport. Like, it's so stupid. It's just so stupid. We tripled the postseason field literally so we could get one of these teams in. Doesn't feel like a big deal to me. Sorry for the theatric. I'm just fired up. All right, speaking of fired up, you know who should be fired up? Kentucky fans. They got a big win. We'll come back, talk a little hoops, but I want to get the chat is humming. Matt, if you got 2 or 3 good questions or comments, we'll get to them. Quick break. Be right back. All right, we're going to get back to the show in a minute, but before we do, you know what we got to do. We got to thank our friends. We got to thank our partners. We got to go ahead and thank ColliPuffs and ColliPuffs.com. Yeah, you see the logo on the back of the screen right here. Okay, so I've told you all about ColliPuffs, but family-owned company, not far from where I live. Joey, a huge sports fan. And one day he was sitting on the couch and he said, you know what? I need a snack that is both healthy but delicious, something my kids are going to love, something my family's going to love, something I'm going to love. And so he came up with ColliPuffs. This is the new age health food snack. You don't need to go to the grocery aisle and buy all that crap, the Doritos, the Fritos. No, my friends, you need ColliPuffs. Baked, not fried, avocado oil, no grease, healthy ingredients. But here's the best part. They taste freaking delicious. Actually, there's another best part. In addition to tasting delicious, in addition to being healthy, they are also taking care of listeners of the Aaron Torres pod. Okay, so check this out. All you got to do is go to ColliPuffs.com. That's CAULIPUFFS.com, ColliPuffs.com, and you can get 15% off any purchase with the promo code Torres. That's Torres, Torres. It's that simple. 15% off any purchase. 1 bag to try them out, 100 bags to cater a party. Doesn't really matter. Promo code Torres. ColliPuffs.com gets you 15% off. ColliPuffs also available on Amazon. You obviously can't get the promo code there, but ColliPuffs.com, ColliPuffs.com, promo code Torres gets you 15% off any purchase. Thank you to our friends at ColliPuffs. All right, everybody. All right, back. Good to be back. We're going to get some college hoops in a minute. Matt, is there anything interesting in the chat besides people calling me dramatic and extra? Eddie says there needs to be a 4 to 8 team G5 championship with the title game played on Heisman Saturday. Winner gets the 12th seed in the college football playoff. Eddie, I don't hate that idea. Listen, you know what's funny, by the way? So what's actually funny is some of the people who want expansion say just put in every conference champion. That's going to make the playoff way worse. And so I think that's actually, it's almost like the old basketball bracket busters, only, it wasn't for auto bids, but it was like, Long Beach State would play Western Kentucky. They'd be the two best teams, and it'd be a chance for one of them to pick up a big win. I would have no problem with the American, instead of like the American playing a conference championship game and James Madison playing a conference championship game, basically letting those two teams play for a spot in the playoff. Now, again, I keep going back to a lot of what screwed this up continues to be the fact that the ACC couldn't get their tiebreakers right. And I don't want to say that's the existential crisis in college football, but if we could just get the ACC tiebreaker right, Miami's playing A&M, Notre Dame gets the last at-large spot that went to Miami, they're playing Ole Miss, and Tulane's at Oregon, where, I don't think it goes much better, but maybe it does. So, yeah. And by the way, this is a great point by Matt in the chat. And this is, again, the next existential crisis is, Matt brought it up, the ACC is basically a G5 conference. Let's just call a spade a spade. Without Miami, what is the ACC? That's part of the problem. Blame some of it on the ACC having zero ability to put together quality football programs outside of Mario Cristobal and Miami. By the way, Matt, while we were on break, I just went on social media. Guess who just went in the portal? Ashton Daniels. That'll be a good, we're still going to do a show or two during the week. Auburn literally losing their entire team to the portal is certainly an interesting one. Alex Golish has decided that they're going to do incentive-based NIL, which sounds great in theory, except when you're making $800,000 or $1 million and somebody's going to offer you $800,000 or $1 million, you're not going to stay for the love of Auburn for $250K plus incentives. So Ashton Daniels is in the portal. Auburn has literally lost like 20 guys in the portal, Jay Crawford, whatever. Matt doesn't seem concerned, but I don't know. I think that will be a good midweek topic. I think, for scheduling purposes, Matt says get rid of all the losers that we have in the locker room. We want winners. Hey, James Madison had a bunch of winners on Saturday. Look how it worked out for them. They got boat race. Give me some dudes that run 4.4s and knock people's heads off. Although I did see Xavier Atkins is coming back, which is probably their best player. Anyway, we'll probably have the Auburn portal segment. By the way, quick side tangent before we get to basketball. I did a segment on Saturday morning just for the YouTube audience. My prediction right now, I'm writing it in stone on December 21st. I think Jeff Brom will be the next Michigan head coach. They play their bowl game Tuesday. That is my prediction. Do we have anything else in the chat before we switch gears over to a little bit of hoops? Okay, this one is, I don't know if I'm ready to handle this one. Worldwide Liberty says, it has never made sense to me why the best teams were in the same conference. It seems that they should compete nationwide in more balanced conferences than meet later for prestige. I mean, that's literally the system that we used to have. And then USC and UCLA, well, really it started with Texas and Oklahoma. Texas and Oklahoma said, hey, rather than just going to the playoff every year because we're just better than everybody, let's go to this really tough league. And then obviously USC and UCLA and then Oregon and Washington, the whole system kind of fell apart. I will say, by the way, Luke in the chat brought up an interesting point, which I think kind of speaks to this, where he said, like, to lead the chat, he said basically that Texas A&M was a paper tiger. Texas A&M was 7 wins in the, here you go, one of the most favorable SEC schedules. That's the problem with these huge conferences with no division, schedule imbalance. So it's a great point by Luke, and it speaks to the worldwide Liberty comment of basically like, like this isn't a fixable problem, which stinks. I actually think college football, maybe the biggest problem is these conferences are too big. And you have a situation where like a Miami doesn't play Virginia. Virginia doesn't, you just pick the teams. It doesn't matter. That's the biggest problem right now. And then Texas A&M, you look at it. I looked it up the other day. Okay, so let me do this really quick. Of their 7 SEC wins, remember there are 16 teams in the SEC. They beat the 16th team, which is Arkansas, the 15th team, South Carolina, the 14th team, Mississippi State, the 13th team, Auburn, the 12th team, Florida, and the 10th team, LSU. So of their 7 SEC wins, 5 were to teams 10 through 16, plus Missouri was tied at 9 at 4-4. So like A&M maybe was a paper tiger because the schedules were just so imbalanced. So that's kind of an issue. And that's one that like, I don't know that it can get fixed. Like, I just really don't know that it can get fixed. All right, let's go ahead and wrap really quickly. A little bit of college hoops. It was a little bit of a slower weekend in the world of college. By the way, Matt, there was no real noteworthy other. Was there any other comments or questions on the college football playoff? We can get to another one or two. Torres is the man. Thank you, Luke. I appreciate your support as always. Luke, I should mention, is a Torres superfan, which is a membership platform that we do have here on YouTube. If you like the show, if you want to support the show, just click the join button at the top of the screen. By the way, Scuba Tuna is our newest member, so thank you to Scuba Tuna for your support. But bottom line is, it really just does help keep the lights on, literally. We're going to be traveling a lot during March, bringing you interviews, things like that. So thank you to Luke for being a super fan, and thank you to everybody. And again, you can sign up as a super fan. It's $4.99 a month. I always say it's cheaper than going to happy hour at the bar. What's a beer at happy hour? $6, $7, $8, $4.99 a month. We do appreciate your support if you want to become a member of the Aaron Torres Pod. All right. Let's see. Okay. E to the F&D says, my question, when will producer Matt become a UK basketball superfan? Over under 1 month sounds right to me. Well, here's the problem. First of all, producer Matt's going to need a whole new football team in the portal because that's going to keep him busy because Auburn has lost 78 players in the portal since we last had him. To Auburn basketball, maybe we'll spend a half a second on them. They either beat you or they get destroyed. Saturday was the destroyed via Purdue. In defense of Stephen Pearl, they've gotten destroyed by Michigan, Purdue, and Arizona, 3 pretty good teams, kind of beating everybody else. And by the way, you know who Auburn beat a few weeks ago? St. John's, which is a nice pivot to what we saw on Saturday afternoon in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, so Kentucky, St. John's. Now, I will say, we did do an immediate reaction after the show. I do want to go ahead and dive in deeper to this game. This was, in my opinion, it ended up being the signature result. Now, I think you could argue Purdue, Auburn, Duke, Texas Tech, Arkansas, Houston, on paper felt like bigger games. But I would counter that by saying there was no more consequential result than what we saw in Atlanta. Clearly, both Kentucky and St. John's, these were both preseason top 10 teams. Kentucky unranked. St. John's was ranked number 22 in the country. And I'll tell you what, I don't want to do the overly dramatic. If Kentucky had lost this game, the season is kind of over, although we did kind of say that against Indiana. But the one thing that I did consistently say, I said after the Indiana game, I was excited. I was fired up. It felt like Kentucky fans felt like our team stinks. I don't really care, whatever. But I said Jalen Lowe was good against Indiana. Mo Diabate was good against Indiana. We have to see what this team looks like at full strength before we decide. Well, I bring it up because in Atlanta, we saw what is the closest thing to a complete Kentucky team on Saturday. And I don't think it's even disputable that they played their best half of basketball. Final score in the game in Atlanta, Kentucky 78, St. John's 66. It was a great final result and a bad result for St. John's when Rick Pitino blew through the handshake line. He spent 2 years talking about how much he loves Mark Pope, basically gives him a cold shoulder in the layup line or in the handshake line. Let's go ahead and talk about this game really quick. And again, I did do a quick reaction after the game, but do want to dive into this a little bit deeper. Okay, so first of all, listen, we talked about it yesterday. The story of this game, Jaden freaking Quaytons, okay? And so listen, when we do all the portal stuff in the spring, I think there's this thought that every time somebody commits, Torres overhypes them and Torres says this guy. But I said, all you have to do, here is the most fundamental, and I said Jaden Quaintance I thought was definitely the best big man and maybe the best player in the portal last offseason, okay? And what I said was, let's just take out my opinion. Let's take the fact that he was in the Big 12 last year as a 17-year-old. And here's the thing, like, so Cooper Flagg, remember, Cooper Flagg was born like late December, where he played as a 17-year-old, but he was 18 for most of the season. And this isn't tear down Cooper Flagg. He's awesome. Jaden Quaintance had just turned 17 when he enrolled at Arizona State a year ago. Remember, he turned 17, and this is going to make us all feel old. He was born July 2007, okay? So he had just turned 17. He might have even showed up on campus at 16 years old at Arizona State a year ago. I don't know what time exactly he showed up. But as a 17-year-old, this guy averaged 9.5 points. This guy averaged 8 rebounds and 2.5 blocks per game in the toughest, most physical league in the sport. And so you knew he was good. But I will tell you, as good as I thought he was, and we talked about last week, I thought this was the game that he was going to make his debut. I will also admit, even though I thought he would make his debut, I thought this was a game where he was going to run up and down the court a few times, bang a couple bodies, get a sweat going. He'd play like 6 minutes, and then Bellarmine right before Christmas would really be the one where they really kind of pushed him a little bit. Now, I will say this. I'll give credit to Jack Pilgrim. He shared a message board post that he had. This I was not aware of, but really it was the Quaintance family that was really pushing to get him on the court for this St. John's game. Well, I bring it up because, this was not ease my guy back in and let's see how he handles himself. This dude not only played, 17 minutes in this game, 10 points, 8 rebounds, 2 blocks. And if you watch this game, I love Zuby Ejiofor, preseason Big East Player of the Year. He bullied Zuby Ejiofor. And so to me, you add him in with a now healthy Mo Diabate. And I will say, Jalen Lowe, it's a weird thing with the shoulder. He literally leaves the game in not the first possession that he was in. He came off the bench, hurts the shoulder, goes to the locker room. I thought he was going to be out for the game. He comes back. He plays really well. And so Kentucky gets the win. And I said it on Saturday. We are now starting to see what Mark Pope was looking for and was expecting when he put this roster together in the spring. Now, you cannot anticipate injuries. Certainly, Jaden Quaintance, we knew was not going to be back till right around this time. But what I will say is this. As I look at Kentucky, I think there's 2 things. One, looking back on Kentucky to this point in the season, I think 2 things can be true. I think when we know that you have a $22 million roster, I do think that it is fair to criticize when you're getting the doors blown off of you by Gonzaga, by Michigan State. And of course, the Louisville game wasn't a blowout in final score, but it was a blowout for most of the game. I think it was fair to be critical. And I was critical because I as soon as I started saying nice things outside, Torres, you're just swinging with the wind and, you're just saying nice things. No. It was okay to be critical. But here's the other thing, and I did say this after the Indiana game. I said it wasn't fair to judge this team until we saw what they look like at full strength. And I'll tell you, they look pretty darn good. And so a couple things. One, I do think we all, and I would include Mark Pope in this, have to accept this is going to be a different kind of team than we expected, right? We all expected, 10 deep, everybody can play, everybody's a baller, 110 points. And Mark Pope has historically played a lot of guys, little minutes, taken a lot of threes, and made a lot of them. This is not last year's team, okay? This is not ever going to be a team that shoots 36 threes in a game and makes 24 of them or 27 of them or whatever. That's just not who this team is going to be. But it doesn't mean that they can't win games, assuming everybody stays healthy. This is going to be a team that is defined now by toughness, by physicality. Remember, Mark Pope in the portal actively sacrificed shooting and offensive prowess for athleticism and toughness. Why he got Mo Diabate, why he got Jaden Quayens, why he got Denzel Aberdeen. But now we have to accept that that is who this team is going to be. And it's not going to, and by the way, I think Kentucky fans are fine with it. I'm talking about Mark Pope. Like, you got to accept this is who the team is. This is what you're going to be. You're not going to be 101 points and 28 threes in a game. Doesn't mean you can't win games, though. And I will say this. As I look at the rest of the SEC, I'm sorry, man. There are a lot of wins to be had. By the way, you got 2 nice wins. St. John's on a neutral, Indiana at home. I think they're both tournament teams. I think St. John's is actually going to be fine because the Big East is so bad that they're going to rack up wins. But I bring it up because this notion that they can't win games or that they shouldn't win games now that they're healthy, I just didn't buy it. By the way, I forgot to mention, we have some good sound from Rick Pitino because you know who was banging the "you can't judge Kentucky until they're healthy" drum? It was Rick Pitino. Let's listen to what he had to say after the game to all of Mark Pope's critics early in the season.
Explain or talk about that a little bit?
I think he's a big-time basketball player, and they're only going to get stronger with him and Lowe. But I think you all need to learn a little bit of a lesson as writers, because you're expecting Kentucky to be this great basketball team with all those injuries. So you all need to learn a lesson, because you can't be a great basketball team without 2 of your best players, with no point guard, no big man. So I think everybody really exaggerates 1 game or 2 games or 3 games. Kentucky got blown out, and usually Kentucky doesn't get blown out of any game, okay? But you have to look at it when they come back, 2 gigantic pieces. So they're going to be a very good basketball team.
2 things. 1, I do love salty Rick Pitino. I was in Vegas after the Iowa State game where he basically told every reporter in the building that you're an idiot. That's a dumb question. Have no problem with it. It's just who he is. But I listen, I do think he's right. And I will say that is one thing that I have said consistently. Can criticize the $22 million roster and roster construction. You cannot judge the team, though, until we see what they look like. And the one thing I will say, I actually think the ceiling of this team now is very high. Look at the SEC. Listen, it's like in the NCAA tournament, right? You don't have to beat 68 teams to win a national championship. You only got to beat 6. And it's the same in the regular season. Yes, if Kentucky was in the Big 12 and the top 4 were Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, and BYU, I'd be worried. But it's not. And the SEC right now, I think, is okay, but not great. And so you look across the SEC. Auburn, we just talked about. I think they're fine. I think they're actually talented. I saw people saying Bruce Pearl left the cupboard empty. No. Bruce Pearl left the cupboard full. It's up to Stephen Pearl to figure out how to use the ingredients that are in the cupboard. But what is Auburn? Alabama has no size at all. Size matters, except at Alabama, apparently, because they don't got enough of it. Tennessee, I think they're still trying to figure it out. I know they beat Louisville. I don't really care. Mikael Brown Jr. didn't play, whatever. Even Arkansas. And I think Arkansas is the best team in the SEC. Complete no-show on Saturday, so who's to say what they're going to be over the course of the season? And so I just bring it up because you start looking around the SEC. Florida is not good. Ole Miss is clearly taking a step back. Okay, Vandy is undefeated. Cool story, bro. They basically almost lost to Memphis the other day. Like, who is Vandy's best wins? I'm not trying to criticize. I'm just saying. Who is Vandy's best wins? They do play Wake Forest today, by the way, on Sunday, so maybe they take their first loss. St. Mary's, VCU, let's pump the brakes on Vandy a little bit. So with Kentucky, I still think the ceiling's high. Big thing is you got to keep Jalen Lowe healthy. You just got to figure out a way to keep him on the court because the team is different with him. And I do think Pitino's point still stands that, give that team some time to get all their pieces healthy. It's still a really good team. And I've said it. I thought there was a lot of overreaction to this team and everything. So we'll see what happens. Kentucky takes the court again December 23rd. So that would be Tuesday early in the day prior to the New Year or prior to Christmas. And then they're off through the New Year before they open SEC play against Alabama. Half a second on St. John's. Pitino, he went off in his presser about his own team. I mean, I'm not ready to give up on him. Basically, he said, we don't have a point guard. We stink. I hate my team. I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said, we're not good enough. The point guard thing, I think, will be an issue. But last year, Kadari Richmond was they figured it out. And I do believe that Pitino is going to get it figured out I don't know. I think he's going to get it figured out. Really quickly, so much football today. I don't want to spend too much time on basketball. We'll go ahead and get out of here on a couple other scores. One, Duke did take their first loss of the year. Texas Tech, a 17-point second half comeback. Unbelievable finish. I know you need a take from Torres. I don't think there is one. I don't think Duke is a fundamentally worse team because they're 11-1 today instead of 12-0. This is a team that won at Michigan State, beat Florida, beat Arkansas, beat Kansas, beat Texas. Good team. Really good team. Texas Tech, I don't think they're like fundamentally incredible because they got this win. Good for them. They needed it after losing to Arkansas last week, but they get the victory. Really quickly, Arkansas, Houston. One, I don't want to dismiss what Houston did. They're awesome, man. And, it's like every single time, and I said this on Friday's show, I was like, I don't know, Houston, maybe they're taking a half a step back. They were awesome on Saturday. Completely controlled the game from start to finish. Kingston Flemings finished with 21 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. Certainly Darius Acuff was awesome. So this isn't like a rip down Darius Acuff thing, but Kingston Flemings was excellent as a true point guard. And it was just, there's no other way to put it. It was a disappointing effort for Kentucky. Like I saw Calipari, he didn't really do like a traditional post-game press conference, but he did have a media scrum or whatever in the back of the building. And he basically said, like, listen, we played 5 really good teams, of course, at Michigan State, Duke, Texas Tech on neutrals, Louisville at home, and now this game against Houston. He said, look, we went 2-3. I thought we could have won the first 2. He's like, we just weren't ready to play. And it was just like Arkansas was just stuck in quicksand. And part of it is Houston put so much pressure on you that, like, if you're not ready to play, they're going to blow the doors off of you. And that's exactly what they did. It was just a disappointing effort because I thought Arkansas made some real strides early in the season. And for them to just essentially have a no-show, I know Darius Acuff played really well, but, what was it? 10 first half turnovers, 12 in the game. And they even said it on the broadcast. Like, it felt like every time Arkansas made a run to cut it to, 9 or 10, they'd have the open 3 that clanged out, and they just could never really get close. Credit Houston. They're a really good team. I just mentioned it, by the way. I was thinking about this. Arizona, BYU, Iowa State, Houston. That is an insane top 4 in the Big 12. Iowa State and Arizona undefeated. BYU only lost to UConn by 2 in Boston. And, oh, by the way, Houston only 1 loss. I was actually at that game against Tennessee in Vegas. Lastly, Carolina gets the win over Ohio State in Atlanta. Just a quick shout out to Caleb Wilson, true freshman, unbelievable, 20 points, 15 rebounds. I think later in the week we'll do a deeper dive into Carolina. They're a team that, because they haven't had a ton of super high-profile games, I really haven't talked about them enough. I should give them credit, though. I mean, I was so critical of Hubert Davis. Carolina finishes out of conference play with this game sitting at I take that back. They still have East Carolina on Monday night. They basically finished the toughest part of their out of conference play at 11-1 overall. I tweeted this after they played East Tennessee the other day. Really well-constructed team, really good team. I think Caleb Wilson and Henry Visar are the most talented front. I don't know if it's the most talented, but they're probably the most skilled front court in college basketball. Got to give Hubert Davis credit, man. They're 11-1 going into ACC play. We've seen Louisville now struggle a few times with teams with size. I think it's, again, going to be a Duke-Carolina thing at the top of the ACC. All right, I'll tell you what, Matt, unless there's another great question or two, I think I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Got some stuff to take care of this afternoon. E to the F&D says, and he's right, things are looking up for UK basketball fans. We got us an early Christmas present on Saturday. I agree 100%, man. And again, I'll just wrap by saying what I said a minute ago. Yes, I was 1,000% critical of Mark Pope. I think it was justified, but we needed to see what this team looks like at full strength. And darn it, they actually look pretty good. All right. Anything else? Kelvin Sampson's a beast. So E to the F&D says Kelvin Sampson knows how to grind teams down. I really thought this was a game that Arkansas was going to win, and it's their time, and da-da-da-da-da. Kelvin Sampson and the Houston Cougars. You know, Torres is Cougar crazy. Great win for them. All right. I do think we're going to go ahead and get out of here. If you're not subscribed, make sure to do so. Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Rate, review the show. Do go ahead, give us a quick 5 stars. Thank you to everyone for your support as we close in on 68,000 subscribers. I think we can get to 70,000 before the new year. Cannot do it without your support. Be an interesting couple days. We will do a live show on Tuesday. Now, Monday, we'll see. I don't think we'll be super early on Monday, but I have a feeling last Monday was a little bit hectic in the portal, the CFB portal. And I think now that some teams have been eliminated from the playoff, I think we could get some movement on Monday as well. So we'll see, but we will definitely be back on Tuesday. Quiet week of college hoops, but we'll still do a Tuesday show before the holiday, and then we'll be off for Christmas. So thank everybody for tuning in here on a Saturday morning. Great audience, great fan. By the way, Eddie, who always has good comments about Kentucky, says, as a UK fan who watched 15 years of Cal, that's what you sign up for. You're going to get those clunkers versus good teams now and then. It was ugly for Arkansas. All right, we're going to roll. Thank you for your support. Time to go. Shout out to Torrin Craig. Shout out to Rachel, who hates my voice. Shout out to JJ Reddick, you F-head. Unblock me, bro. Put on the notifications on YouTube. We may go live tomorrow, certainly Tuesday morning.